Ethan Reyes had long ago accepted that life didn't owe him fairness, comfort, or even a break. After losing his wife during childbirth, he'd spent every waking moment trying to balance grief and responsibility while raising his 5-year-old son Noah. The janitorial night shift at Orion Tech Tower, the tallest, most prestigious corporate building in the city, was the only job flexible enough to let him be both parent and provider. Every evening he clocked in with his old backpack, worn-out shoes, and the quiet strength of a man doing everything for someone small who depended on him. The building always felt too large, too polished, too quiet, especially at night when its marble floors echoed with the sound of Ethan's mop and rolling cart. He was invisible here, just another blue-uniformed worker blending into the background of a billionaire empire. And he preferred it that way. He didn't belong in the world of people like Adrian Locke, the intimidating CEO who ran Orion Tech with a mind sharp enough to build empires and a presence strong enough to silence rooms. But the one person in the tower who truly held Ethan's attention was not the billionaire, but his daughter, Isla. Isla Locke was 8 years old, with deep ocean-colored eyes and dark silky curls that fell messily to her shoulders. She moved like a whisper, delicate, cautious, floating rather than walking. She never spoke. Not a word in her entire life. Doctors had tried everything: neurological studies, therapy, assistive speech devices, behavioral specialists from all around the world. Each attempt ended the same. Isla remained trapped behind silence, communicating only through drawings and expressions so subtle most people missed them. Adrian Locke, for all his power, influence, and money, couldn't reach her. Rumors spread among staff that he blamed himself. His wife had died when Isla was a toddler, leaving him overwhelmed, grieving, and emotionally distant at the worst possible time. Even now, he tried, but he never knew how to cross the quiet world Isla lived in. Ethan understood that world too well. He had spent years trying to understand Noah's grief, his night terrors, his confusion over why he grew up without a mother. He knew the language of children who carried invisible heaviness. Maybe that was why, though he never dared approach her, he always felt a strange pull whenever he saw Isla sketching quietly in the lobby while waiting for her father. One rainy evening, everything changed. Orion Tech Tower was nearly empty, the halls dimmed to soft gold lights. Outside, thunder rumbled, and the city below blurred beneath sheets of rain. Ethan was finishing up a floor, humming gently, when he spotted a small shape curled up in the lobby's corner. Isla, alone. Her shoes were soaked, her little hands trembling as she hugged her sketchbook to her chest. She should never have been unaccompanied, not in a building with over 1,000 rooms and multiple restricted floors. Ethan approached cautiously, lowering himself to her eye level. "Hey, there," he whispered softly, the same way he spoke to Noah when he woke up crying. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" Isla looked up. Her eyes shimmered, not with fear, but urgency. She didn't speak. She simply slid off the bench, grabbed his sleeve tightly with her cold fingers, and tugged hard. "Where do you need to go?" Ethan asked, his voice gentle, careful not to overwhelm her. She let go only long enough to flip open her sketchbook. On the page was a quickly drawn picture. A hallway, a door, faint lines of smoke rising from under it. Ethan's heart punched his ribs. "Something's wrong upstairs." She nodded once, sharp and desperate, then pulled him toward the elevator with surprising force for such a small frame. He didn't hesitate. Instinct, fatherhood, and sheer human decency propelled him. Inside the elevator, she pressed the button for the 47th floor. The doors opened to a faint burning smell. Smoke seeped under a door marked, "Restricted, New Lab Installation." Isla tugged again. Ethan took a breath, braced himself, and pushed open the door. Heat smacked him like a wall. Sparks jumped wildly from an overloaded breaker box. A technician lay unconscious near a toppled ladder, smoke swirling dangerously close around him. "Stay here," Ethan shouted over the crackles, though he doubted she'd obey. He grabbed a fire blanket from the emergency kit, covered his mouth with his sleeve, and ran into the haze. His lungs burned instantly. Sweat pricked his skin. He dropped to his knees beside the technician and dragged the limp body toward the hallway. Isla stepped forward, reaching fearlessly to help him pull. Together, Her tiny hands straining, his muscles shaking, they got him through the doorway. Ethan smothered the sparks with the blanket, knowing he didn't have more than seconds before the fire spread. Just as the flames tried to rise again, the backup safety system finally kicked in. Sprinklers burst overhead, alarms wailed through the hall. Ethan collapsed backward against the wall, coughing. Isla rushed to him, her face pale but relieved, and placed her hands on his shoulders as if checking he was real, alive, safe. He managed a weak smile. "Good job getting me," he rasped. Isla blinked slowly, her eyes filling with tears. The elevator dinged. Adrian Locke stormed out with his security team, panic carved across his face. "Isla," he yelled. She ran to him, clutching his coat, trembling. Adrian dropped to his knees, holding her tight, his breath shaking as though he had been seconds away from losing her entirely. Then Isla turned and pointed at Ethan. Her father followed her gaze, eyes locking onto the soot-covered janitor who had just saved a life, and his daughters. "Mr. Reyes," Adrian said, voice low. "Come with me, now. Part 2. Ethan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flames, the smoke, Isla's terrified little face, the technician's lifeless body that he'd somehow managed to pull to safety. By morning, the news had already blown up. Mysterious worker saves engineer from lab fire at Orion Tech Tower. Employees whispered his name with awe. But Ethan hated attention. He wasn't a hero. He was just a dad trying to survive. When he arrived for his shift early the next day, half worried, half resigned, that was when he was summoned to the penthouse level, a place only elite executives ever stepped foot inside. Adrian Locke's office spanned half the floor, with glass walls overlooking the sunrise spilling over the city. Ethan expected anger, legal threats, maybe even getting fired for stepping into a restricted area, even if he saved someone. But instead, Adrian sat on a low sofa beside Isla, who held her sketchbook against her chest like a shield. "Sit," Adrian said quietly. "Not a demand, a request." Ethan obeyed. "My daughter," Adrian began, glancing at her, "has never trusted anyone enough to follow them. Ever." Ethan said nothing. Isla slowly opened her sketchbook and showed her father the page she'd drawn last night. "Ethan, the door, the smoke." She turned the page. A new drawing. Ethan pulling the technician out. Isla holding his hand. Adrian's voice cracked. "She's never expressed anything like this before." Ethan swallowed. "She wasn't scared of me," he said softly. "Maybe because I spoke to her like a kid. Not a patient." Silence fell, heavy and loaded. Then Isla did something none of them expected. She walked straight to Ethan, held out her sketchbook, and pressed it into his hands. He looked at her, confused. She looked back, eyes shimmering. And then, like a fragile bird learning to sing, she whispered, voice shaking, "Safe." Ethan froze. Adrian sucked in a breath as if the world had stopped. Isla had spoken. A word, her first word in her entire life. And she had said it to him. Tears filled Adrian's eyes as he whispered, "Sweetheart, say it again." Isla looked at Ethan, not her father. "Safe," she repeated, her tiny voice trembling but real, undeniable. Ethan's vision blurred. He'd heard Noah say his first word. He knew the miracle of it. But hearing a child who had been silent her whole life suddenly speak, because of him, shattered something inside his chest. Adrian, emotional in a way no one at Orion Tech had ever seen him, wiped his eyes and stood. "Mr. Reyes, I don't know how you did this. But you reached her." Ethan shook his head. "I didn't do anything special." "That's where you're wrong." Adrian stepped closer. "I've hired dozens of specialists, spent millions, searched the world for answers, and none of them got near what you did without trying. She spoke for you. She trusted you." Isla touched Ethan's hand again, resting her forehead lightly against his arm in silent affirmation. Adrian took a slow breath. "I want you to be part of her development going forward. I can promote you, raise your salary, adjust your hours, whatever you need." Ethan's mind raced. "Sir, I'm just a janitor. I don't think I'm." "You're the one person who makes my daughter feel safe," Adrian said gently. "If that isn't qualification, I don't know what is." Over the next days, Adrian assigned Ethan a dual role, part facility assistant, part companion for Isla during her therapy hours. Ethan spent mornings with Noah, worked afternoons at the tower, and stayed by Isla's side during her speech sessions, drawing time, and quiet breaks. Everything changed. Isla didn't talk much, but when she did, it was always with Ethan nearby. Her vocabulary grew slowly. Draw, Noah, light, help, stay. Noah adored her, teaching her simple games, showing her how to build with blocks, reading picture books beside her. Adrian watched in awe as Ethan, a man society ignored, did for his daughter what no amount of money ever could. One warm afternoon on the rooftop garden, Isla sat between Ethan and Noah, sketching them with careful strokes. When she finished, she held up the drawing, 3 figures side by side, holding hands under a sun bigger than all 3 of them. Then she leaned her head gently against Ethan's shoulder. "Family," she whispered. Ethan felt his heart break open. Noah grinned and hugged her tightly. Adrian, standing a few steps away, covered his mouth as tears rolled freely down his cheeks. In that moment, he realized something profound. All his wealth, all his resources, all his brilliant solutions had failed to save his daughter from her silent world. But a single dad janitor, with worn shoes, tired eyes, and a heart big enough to hold 2 hurting children, had done the unbelievable. He had given Isla the one thing she had never known: safety. And from safety, she had finally found her voice. The miracle was not in what Ethan did. It was in who he was.